Hopefully we're good here. You may not be. So I had to restart due to an error and I've got no views. So YouTube had a connection issue, which again, they kind of kill us on the algo with this. They really need to fix their stuff. They need to fix their stuff. All right. Oh, man. Oh, well. Okay, it's working. Okay, cool. There we go. We're back up, guys. We are up. All right, so we actually got a lot of views on that first one. I'm surprised. They had actually had a high view count when it tallied it up. It got more than my coffee chat did all day yesterday morning already. So that was fascinating. All right. But hopefully we get this filling up quickly. We're back. What's going on, guys? We are definitely back. I got to get some group posts done real quick, though, while I chat with you guys. Once a lot of this stuff blows over, I may discuss what happened in public in detail with the USPA. I am still a member in good standing. But what ended up happening with it was very, very frustrating. Almost lawsuit level. And that's one reason I don't discuss it. Right. One reason I don't discuss it, because at a certain point, depending upon funding, I still may need to go back and actually sue some of the officials involved in my local banning, because it was total slander. So in short, had a conversation with some of the individuals involved with that. And because they believed something that is completely slander and not even remotely true from a hate video that was made about me sent to them. And that was considered a part of what the conversation they had of why they blocked me in the state of Texas only. That becomes a slander issue, because it was completely malicious slander, right? It was that level. So that's one reason I've kind of just been real chill about the situation and not discussed that in public. But that state chair who did that is no longer an official. He is no longer part of the organization either. And the national level decided that they were not going to penalize me in any way, that they wanted me to stay a member in good standing. And I was real polite about the conversation, but essentially I got accused of being a PDF because of a hate video, right? Because that affected my business. I was a competitor who used my footage and meat stuff as part of my actual business model. So this is a problem. And I think this, so people have to understand, well, some of this slander has been leveled and the stuff that's been put out. And again, I don't talk about some of it in public. I'm not only accused of it, I'm accused of being a self-admitted. Do we understand the implications of that from a legal perspective? You're not just one, you admit to being one. Whoa. Again, all my followers are like, no, you don't. Exactly. Yeah. So some of the other names that get dropped in here, without going into details, one of the names that gets dropped in here routinely has published public material. And I have proof of it because it's actual printed material, published material that's been distributed that accuses me of being a self-admitted one. So, AKA Alex Rosin, he's done this and distributed material claiming that. And these are all people in Texas. This is not people in other places. So all these people of these different parties that I'm discussing with this, I have their full names and they live and have residences in my state. I'm aware of that, David. So yeah, I mean, this is a big deal, right? It's a very big deal because again, to make the claim that someone is one, you need some sort of evidence anyways. Has there been a charge pressed? Has there been an accusation made? Well, there's zero. There's nothing, right? Keep the receipts, exactly. Right? Well, there's nothing. I've never had any type of accusation other than trolls on the internet, right? There is nothing. No one has ever pressed a charge. No one has ever done an investigation, right? So there's no accusations anywhere ever in recorded history from a parent or a child. But to claim that it's self-admitted means that I have to be up here saying it. Well, there is no self-admission either. I am adamantly opposed to it, like very vocally, right? I am an extremely anti-pedophilia person. In my message, my outreach, and discussing the death penalty, right? Like, I believe it should be an executable offense. That is my public position. So again, to make a statement like that automatically becomes slander, right? But that's their argument. Well, he admits to it. He's a self-admitted. Whoa, right? That falls very clearly into slander because now you've gone from not only the accusation to a self-admitted. Oh no. Remixing a video or my sound bites or using AI is not self-admitted, guys. There's nothing in any of work that I've produced or published. So again, that falls under slander. And very clearly malicious slander. You can't accuse people of stuff like that. So there's a lot going on to unpack with that situation. That's why I had to be real chill when the whole thing went down. But again, why I get pissed at certain things, and I have to check myself, not let myself get shook online. Because that was a situation to where I was getting ready to compete and do some more meets, and had to have that conversation to where we have to ban you from competing in this state. Keeping my composure and being very calm in that conversation took a lot. Kind of was I take a breath. Okay. Let's have this conversation. You know, I'm not going to go into what all was said and by who, but it's kind of like, you know, definitely somebody yapping in the background who I'm kind of like, you need to shut your wife up right now. Whoa. You know, it's like, wow. Yeah. You know, but what do you do? But what a messy fiasco. But as it stands, it wouldn't be the same issue now for me because am in good standing with the national office. But by that same token, I start lawyering up, that could affect that too. You know, so I have to keep all that in mind. Because I don't want to be in a situation like that to where I've then got to sue the organization. Um, but by that same token, the organization itself ruled that I was a member in good standing, allowed to compete at national events, world events, so on. So it was a local political issue. Right. Give me a second here, guys. I got to do some posting. They will get their comeuppance, if not in this life and in the next. There we go. All right. I'm gonna be right back though, guys. I need some coffee in the restroom. Yep. All right. So we are back. But that's one of those cases to where, so assuming you guys are still in here, for me, I do take a certain sense of pride in maintaining my composure and my calm in that situation. Because there would have been a point in my life where I would not have been able to do that. As a survivor of that type of abuse who had a lot of enormous anger issues around it, all right, to have someone make that type of accusation, completely false accusation, and then use it to directly affect my business and reputation, for me to have kept my cool and not gone in a vehicle and gone into that person's home and lift them up, I'm actually proud of. There'd have been a time in my life where that would have been my response. I'd be in prison. Like, there was a point in my life where I would have killed somebody for saying something like that, like straight up, and not cared if I went to jail for it. But I kept my cool completely. I didn't raise my voice, didn't yell, stayed calm. Took a breath. So there is that. Yeah. All right. But I think that's a certain thing that comes with maturity, emotional control. When you're put in a situation to where the normal response would be absolute rage, and you get mad, but you keep your cool about it. It's like, okay, I'm angry, but I'm not going to scream. I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to hurt anybody. Let's just take a deep breath, keep my calm. Right. So, see if we get some other conversations. Get those likes up out the way, though, guys. Oh, man. So, by the way, I had someone who left a message and it got a bunch of upvotes yesterday. Someone was upset and said they're not going to follow my channel because I don't edit my live streams after. They think that we can just edit these live streams like this. So the one from yesterday afternoon is kind of rather bizarre. No, I don't think that we can, actually. I could be wrong, but I don't have any options. It's very funny. They sound like a beta alive. Right. No, dude. So actually, if you go look under the one with the Larry Wills title yesterday, there's a dude, and he's it's like an 11-year-old channel there. Doesn't seem to understand that these live streams, they're not edited. Like, they're just YouTube software puts the live up. Like, there's not really a whole lot you can do with it. It's not like a video I made and then uploaded. It was a live stream, right? So you have to look at it and go, what edit do you think we can even do? I'm actually looking. So apparently I can trim it a little bit. That's it. I can add some blur. I can add music. Oh, it does let me see the where it placed the ads, though. Man, it is aggressive with my ads. Woo! Lord of mercy. But I don't know what edits they think I can do. It's rather strange. I mean, we're very limited. I guess they want me to add some music. But what happens when you add music? You add royalty-free music from their library, and someone buys the music later, and then they get to pop you. You know, I guess that's what they want. We can add some music to it. You guys want some smooth jazz in the background of the live streams? Oh yeah, dude, I have the ads set to aggressive. I keep them set there because I mean, at the end of the day, man, this channel doesn't get as many views as it used to. I might as well maximize every view. But I've always done aggressive ads, and that's probably a factor. You know, I've had people in the past used to say, "There's no way you make that sort of money per view," and I'm like, "Yeah, I do. I always have, but I've always run aggressive ads." You know, like before, people were like, "Nobody makes that much money per view." I'm like, "I've made that sort of money per view for 8 years straight. What are you guys talking about?" Like that's like 5 times what I make, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, where do you have your ad settings at?" So even though my views are low, but I think people forget I get the residual trickle um, from all my old videos. They get viewed every day. So for those curious what my RPM is, so do you want to know what my channel makes? I make $10 per 1,000 views, according to my analytics on average. All right. So, you know, I used to do 5, but in recent times it's gone up to 10. So it's like my views are low, but my RPM has always been super good. Yeah. So, but when I've talked to other people, my RPM has always been higher than every other person I've ever compared notes with in the past. And it's higher these days than it used to be. But this year, my RPM is at $10 per 1,000 views, just for the channel average, um, according to my analytics on YouTube, because we have access to all that. That's what they told me that they're doing me. So, you know, yeah. But still, it's all just a drop in the pot. At the end of the day, it's about the coaching, really. You know, but that's why the lives pan out so well. I mean, they get good ads per view. You guys buy memberships, people drop supers, but I get consultations. My library will always generate passive income, unless I don't upload any content and then they unmonetize you. So if I don't put any videos up for a year, they'll unmonetize it. Yeah. So I have to put something up. I'm going to have to upload a few videos a year no matter what to stay monetized, that are monetizable videos. They will eventually turn you off. They don't leave you a dead channel, and they're very clear on that. But yeah, I mean, I have videos that will make money every month as long as this channel exists and isn't unmonetized, probably. Like the ice cream fitness 5x5 video forever is a passive income video. So, you know, right. You look super jacked in that video. What, the old ice cream fitness one? Bro, I hadn't even been training again that long. I was not that jacked. I was so much weaker than I am now. I don't even think I could barely bench 315 at that time. I don't even know if I could bench 315 again yet. I think I was below that. But, you know, Arm in the thumbnail. Gotcha. True. I didn't even do curls at the end of it. I don't think I was just doing pull-ups. Right. I don't know. I'm debating adding one set of curls in every workout, though. I don't know. It's so hard for me to not curl, even though I look at it and go, I know I could probably just get really strong at chins. It is so difficult for me to not curl. But then I also go, it hasn't worked. Am I overtraining my arms to the point where we're seeing regression with it? To the point where it's costing me muscle, you know? So that's the other thing too, Connor. You know, we talk about comparing studies. We have older studies that showed that the volumes go too high, it causes less muscle growth. So that's always concerning, you know, the problem with exercise science. The junk volume doesn't just cause nothing. There definitely been data sets showing junk volume literally causes you to grow slower than had you just not done it. And I almost feel like I'm an example of it with that, you know. Right. In other words, 20 sets of curls a week doesn't do anything without a blast. Yeah, we started a new stream. It makes sense as there's a plateau beyond a certain point of volume, which depends between individuals, you know. And it's quite shocking to me that I feel like my back and my legs have literally grow faster than my arms when the volume is really high for the arm portion. Now, granted, this lighting is horrible, you know, but it's also, again, our individual structures. Like, I'm always going to be big. I've almost said that if I wanted a certain type of physique, I would have to stop lifting weights completely. I would have to stop lifting. I don't know how you're only the second like. We had to shut the first one. The first one had 400 views, but it bugged out. Like the connection died. It's gone up. There we go. But and so again, structure. I have always been big. You know, even when I was a runner, I just looked like a lifter with no arms. So when I was doing the distance running and lost weight, I just looked like a lifter who didn't train his arms, even though I wasn't a lifter yet. So it's just, oh man. But pretty much, like if I wanted to have that certain athletic physique that dudes talk about, I would have to stop lifting weights. Let me be clear. I would have to stop lifting weights and do nothing but biceps, like nothing but arm isolation. Leave my back, leave my chest. Everything would have to be completely untrained other than GPT stuff. Jumping, throwing, right? Some sleds maybe, and just curls. Literally the only way I could get the sort of physique a lot of people want, like the certain type of athletic aesthetic. I can't lift weights and get that type of physique. I will simply be too big. You know, because I know what my proportions were as a non-lifter already. And then we're going to have muscle memory indefinitely. Oh, man. So our structures always have to be taken into account with a lot of stuff that we do. Right. What are your thoughts on isometrics under heavy load? I need you to be very specific, JC. I get a lot of compliments on the chest. Like women love the chest. What are your thoughts on isometrics? JC, in what way? I think they're largely a waste of time unless you need sport specific. I get for joint angle specificity or sport specific stuff, they could have a use. For general size, they're going to be horrifically bad. So, so JC, for what purpose? Well, peppermint, it depends on how much I'm out and about. Keep in mind, I don't go to the store every day anymore. So how often do I get a compliment if I'm out shopping or in public? Probably an 80% chance. Maybe 80%. Yeah, Connor is a physiologist, by the way, JC. JC, Connor's background is in sports physiology, and he's telling you just no point. Hey, coach, boxing training required a lot of what? Now, pause squats can have good mobility. Yeah, absolutely, pause squats. All right. But then you're coming back up as a dynamic movement. That's not an isometric because you're squatting it back up out of the bottom. It's still a dynamic movement. Now, could a weighted plank have some carryover to stability at that joint angle for your squats and deadlift? You know what I do for abs as a strength athlete? I do toe to bars. You were in here talking about calisthenics, and I'm laughing. You should do calisthenics, and now you're over here talking about weighted planks, and I'm a power lifter who does toe to bars. That's my ab. You know, isometrics are not going to be that good for boxing because they don't have any hold positions. It's not wrestling. You can make a case for wrestling, but why would a boxer ever need isometrics? So toe to bars are my go-to ab exercise, and I swing all the way up. Like I want my shin to hit the bar. So I swing because that also creates a stronger eccentric. You have to have really strong abs with legs my size to swing up. Right. I do toe to bars, man. I think for powerlifters, that's your best ab exercise. Why? Because not only does it build your abdominal wall, it's free grip training hanging from the bar. Right. David, do you ever give compliments to other people at the supermarket? Do you ever see someone worth complimenting? I get shopping delivered, and so I hate going. No, dude, I always joke. Anyone who's a lifter, I say something. I even make the lifter chicks laugh. If I see a woman who obviously lifts and she's serious and she's got on gear or whatever, because we see it, it does happen. I'll stop and joke and be like, "Do you even lift?" You know, I'll just mess with them, and then they'll start laughing because they see how I look. You know? I like weighted incline sit-ups with a plate, feel like my hip flexors. Or stance is normally accompanied by punching, though, right? Yeah, any isometrics you do better be very sport specific. They're outside of sports. But are you talking about certain movement patterns, wrestling, grappling, or even say strength sports, for your sticking points, possibly. But, you know, we could argue on sticking points of, do you need to train the sticking point or do you need to simply grow the weak links? In other words, if you stick right at the transition point on your bench press, do you need to train the transition point or do you need to just get really strong at incline bench and overhead press? Right? What's your solution? Copenhagen planks. What are you guys even talking about? Why don't you just do some toe to bars or some weighted crunches? If you're just trying to train your ab, what are you trying to do? Right? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? And I'm saying this as someone who coaches people in multiple sports. So how serious are you about talking about weak points? Like, what level do you coach at, JC? Like, how competitive are your clients? Like, do you have anyone national level or higher? Do you have anyone who's ever broke a national record in anything? I do. So won't deadlifts be enough to train your core? So Tomner, right. So Tomner, that's a loaded question. Are deadlifts enough to train your core? Well, how strong of a core are you trying to get? But what if your core is limiting your deadlift and you're stuck at, say, 550 and it won't go up because your core is too weak? What are you going to do about it? What if you're trying to get to a 700-pound deadlift and your core is too weak? Context. I coach a lot of elite athletes also. I have put up clients of mine deadlifting 700 plus pounds. Coach some pretty strong people. So the context for the question, could the average person get a really strong core doing squats and deadlifts? Yeah, man. I mean, you get your deadlift up to 500 pounds, you're going to have a pretty strong core. But we need context for this. Yeah, I mean, I've had some in the past. Some of the stuff I don't talk about for reasons I'm not going to go into with at least one client. But like, I put Perry stuff up. So I had Perry up squatting in the low 600s, weighing 200 pounds. I've had a Croatian national record holder with like a 720-pound deadlift. Favorite in weight cable rope crunches. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't spend a lot of time worrying about weak points when your whole body is weak. Like, bros, if you deadlift 350 pounds, you don't have any weak points. You are the weak point. The weak point is your body. And I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm saying that as a strength coach who makes my living getting people brutally strong for a living. This is how I pay my bills. This is how I buy Gibson guitars and so on. It's by getting people really, really, really strong. Okay. And jacked and explosive. I have people who do other sports. I mean, I've had marathon runners. If you're a grown man who deadlifts 350 pounds, your body is the weak point. Okay. Because that's just not at a fully trained level. You have not put in a whole lot of time yet in the barbell. I don't like the hex bar deadlift. I'm going to quote my friend Alex Viada. I love this quote. So Viada owns Complete Human Performance, his doctoral work in biomechanics. All right. I'm going to quote Viada. The hex bar is a solution looking for a problem. I don't like it at all. I'm aware a lot of strength coaches like the hex bar. For someone who is proficient at the deadlift, okay, if you're unproficient at the deadlift, a conventional deadlift is a higher risk injury than the trap bar. If you are proficient at the deadlift, the trap bar is more dangerous than the barbell. But for someone who knows how to deadlift, those risks go away with the barbell. The hex bar, the risk can't be removed. Right? What do you think of Tai Chi for flexibility? I don't think about Tai Chi at all. Yeah, Connor says hex bar deadlift equals for both down for both sports and hypertrophy. So, but JC, why didn't you just use good form? Isn't the solution to just learn how to deadlift correctly? So, how many people tear their biceps curling bad and have to have them reattached by a surgeon? It happens every day. So, because performing a curl incorrectly causes bicep tears, we should just not curl. No, the solution is to curl correctly. It's the Diet Coke list, right? So people get scared of the conventional deadlift because of the potential for back injury off the floor because of bad form. Where's the back injury risk on the trap bar? It's at the lockout, and there's nothing you can do with your form to remove the risk. It's unstable at the lockout with a heavy load. The second you learn how to deadlift correctly, your risk of a disc herniation with a trap bar are much higher than they are with a conventional deadlift. Trap bars hurt you at the lockout when they go wrong. Hey, Tonder, who told you that? Back for no problem. No one taught you how to do the lift. I could fix it in 1 minute flat as a coach. I can fix your deadlift in absurd. Like I've taken people who struggle to learn it through typing and just simply get them in a video call at the gym with their earphones in and set their phone up, and I just fix their deadlift. It's super easy. I can get you to a competition quality deadlift in 5 minutes through a video call. Ask me how I know. I've done it like 20 times. Trap bar plus weighted planks, a great recipe for a destroyed lumbar. Right. Right. Yep. And let me be clear, I have friends who are coaches who love the trap bar. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a fan. Even outside of that, coach is tutorialed up. As a beginner, you still think your 5x5 is the best? I don't think there's a best. I think it's a solid program. I think any of those novice linear programs work just fine for uncoached people. You won't get injured if you listen to coach. All my clients who get hurt is when they don't listen to me. I get clients who get hurt all the time, by the way. They get hurt when they do not listen to what I told them. There have been times when I told clients, do not do this again. Stop doing it. Stop. And I have it in writing, like in a message. And they go do it again and get hurt. All the way up to requiring surgery level hurt. Imagine my frustration as a coach when I tell a lifter, do not do this. They have it in writing. They read it. They say they won't do it. And then they've ripped something off the bone that requires a surgeon to reattach it, doing something I told them to not do. Imagine how dumb that client feels, by the way. My coach told me not to do something, and I had to have it surgically repaired a week later by doing it anyways. Usually young men. There can be exceptions. Yeah, that client will listen from then on. Like, okay, now we got to go through rehab. Yeah, now we got to go through rehab while you fix this. This has literally happened. You know, this exact scenario has played out. I told someone not to do something and they did it anyways 48 hours after I told them not to do it. And they had to have a surgery to fix it. So you only need to tear your bicep once before you park your ego. There's my surgical scar. What year did I do that? 2004. So I tore my bicep. My bicep was repaired 21 years ago. It was reattached 21 years ago. I was in my 20s though. So, you know, all men in their 20s are stupid. Like, we accept this. All of us, myself included. All right. It just goes with the territory. But as soon as you stop being stupid, these problems go away. It's what puts me off taking anabolics. I heard the increased injury risk. Boy, that's a nuanced topic, Connor. I think there's an enormously nuanced topic. No, not necessarily. Is it painful, a bicep tear? Thankfully, initially, no. You don't feel it at all at first. But when I looked at it, Tomner, I looked at it and go, man, this is really going to hurt. I didn't feel anything. I'm on my way to a TRT consult in New York City right now. There you go. I'm pro TRT. But TRT is not the same as blasting gear. It's not the same thing, JC. We're talking about blasting. Right? We're talking about actually blasting. It depends on the substances in question, Connor. Right? I could design a stack that will give you tendons of titanium. Now there could be other effects. So Connor, I'll tell you what I would do. If someone told me, Coach, I want the strongest tendons possible, what would you advocate? Meaning we don't factor in other side effects. right? Or at least minimizing side effects. I would probably do a low replacement dose of testosterone, significant amount of nandrolone decoinate with a hefty dose of growth hormone. I keep the test low, relatively low. I would let the nandrolone, decadurable, that's the street name. I would let that do most of the work, and then growth hormone. I can tell you two drugs I would never, ever, 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 ever consider if you care about your tendons. Yep. If tendon ruptures are a concern for you, trenbolone, completely out of the question. Winstrol, which also stanozolol, the other name for it, completely out of the equation. No, absolutely not. If this is a fear of yours, do not touch those drugs, ever. And I think that's fair. Number 3, do not abuse aromatase inhibitors. I want to really lower my estrogen really low, guys. Well, don't cry when you rip your bicep off the bone or your quad or your hamstring. You know? But aromatase inhibitor abuse ruptures tendons also. All right. Which makes what Pete Rubbish did even more insane. Right? Yeah, low estrogen causes brittle tendons. I mean, dudes get all upset about estrogen. I don't want it to be on the higher end of normal. It's like you'll have stronger tendons. Like estrogen and tendons go together like peas and carrots. You know. All right. Oh man, well, Tomner, this is now the topic of left ventricular hypertrophy is another entire set of complexity. That is way too nuanced of a conversation for us to really have. That's going to be largely a dose dependent situation. Genetics and dose dependent is going to be a factor. How much do you use? Right? I'm going to be right back though, guys. All right. Back. So we're back. Connor, is there any natural way to increase testosterone? Not really. I mean, I have said many times worrying about natural testosterone production is a complete waste of time and energy. There's no benefit to you even trying, right? And here's why. Anything that will boost your normal testosterone production, the health benefits itself are worthwhile, even if you don't have any testosterone. Everything that will boost your natural testosterone production are so beneficial to your health and well-being that they're worth doing, even if you're a woman. Therefore, the testosterone boosting is so irrelevant to the equation that it's not worth considering. Dude, I've had a bunch. I drink a ridiculous amount of coffee in the morning. I'm into my second pot, full pot already. Yeah. Right? So that's the thing to think about. Because think about everything that boosts testosterone in a man biologically. Being at a healthy body fat, not being fat, right? Obesity craters testosterone. So not being fat. What else crushes alcohol? What else crushes alcohol? Drinking alcohol destroys your lack of sleep, destroys your testosterone. See when we start going down this road, dietary deficiencies can destroy testosterone. You start adding this up, and then this is where you start to realize, oh, wait a minute, the best way to boost my testosterone, right, is to not be fat, not drink alcohol, get plenty of sleep, and eat a balanced diet. You kind of see where we're going with this? The benefits of all that stuff so far outweigh the testosterone. And if that doesn't boost you enough, the only thing that's going to help is a direct injection, it's drugs, right? This might sound stupid to you, but I never drank coffee really, and I'm close to 29. Would it help any sort of damage anything? I've done detailed analysis of the positive and negatives of coffee. Look, if you want to drink coffee, it has some benefits. I'm a big coffee drinker, but I'm not telling you have to, that there's going to be. It has some benefits. As long as you don't have certain medical conditions or psychological conditions, it would be counterindications. Alcohol destroys gains, but the studies do show that it destroys gains. My rest the other day. I need a routine of sleep. My Fitbit sleep score is 94. The other days I binge at night and score 75. Yeah, get your sleep hygiene sorted. Your heart rate's good. Your height, body weight's good. None of that's indicative of problems. When would you start adding weight to pull-ups? When you can do 10? Yeah, I think if you can do 10 reps, that's a good start, David. Once you can do 10 pull-ups, you can start adding weight. I feel like they start to not be that great for set-to-set hypertrophy once you start getting to about 15 plus reps. So even for me, weighted, I don't go above that when I add weight. Just go heavier at that point. I'm on a low dose of Adderall, much preferred to caffeine. Caffeine makes me lightheaded and sky. Okay. Caffeine is not a diuretic. That's a myth. That's a debunked myth. Coffee is not a diuretic, by the way. I'm very aware that people believe it's been studied. Alcohol, I agree, alcohol. But you know my position on alcohol, Connor. I am very anti-alcohol. I am militantly anti-alcohol. I don't allow alcohol in my home. Like that is a straight rule. Guests are not allowed to bring alcohol into my house. But just how I feel about it. Um, you know, I don't drink. I prefer not to be around it. Um, don't allow it in my home. Don't ask me if I'm hanging out somewhere. Don't ask me to go get you a beer out of the fridge while I'm up at your house. It's not going to happen. You go get your own damn beer. Your wife can get you your beer. that is how I feel about it. Some of my really close inner circle drink, so that's why that happens. But you know, everybody knows the rules. Anyone who lives shouldn't even think about it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Booze ruins lives. Hey, Tomner. So you know people who drink and made it to 70. So do you think 70 is an amazing age? Who the hell has one drink? Also, look at the cancer data on casual drinking. Even all the cancer researchers have admitted in the last couple of years, their data shows that one drink a month is enough to cause cancer in many people. It's enough to increase the risk of 7 types of cancers. One drink per month. So even this, the one drink. Yeah. And this is, I'm going to give you my counter argument because we have statistics and we know what it does statistically and what the risks are. It's been pretty heavily studied. Hey, Tomner, I know a guy who played 3 rounds of Russian roulette and he's just fine. See how that works? Tomner, I know someone who played 3 rounds of Russian roulette. He's fine. Therefore, it's not a problem. I know a dude who ran out in a lightning storm waving a big steel pole in the air, and he's just fine. You know, I wouldn't recommend that you do either of these things, though. You know, JC, I'm on the subway and everyone has cryptotic posture, right? Yep. Without being personal info, do you actively avoid situations being served, or do you still? I have not been in a bar in a really long time, David. No, I don't hang out in bars. I mean, have I been in restaurants that serve alcohol or go to an actual bar? I mean, because it's kind of hard to find completely alcohol-free restaurants other than McDonald's and fast food. Most restaurants do serve alcohol and have a bar inside the restaurant. Um, at this point in my life, I prefer to not be around it. I haven't been around anybody drinking in a little while, even my bros. So some of my stuff has gotten more aggressive with it with some recent life stuff. Um, I don't want to reveal personal info, but there are things that I see in my head now when I see alcohol. So if I see an advertisement through my social media feed or a drink, I do have a certain response to it. I haven't been around anyone drinking in a while in person, but I'm concerned that me seeing or smelling it is just going to be, yeah, you know. I've seen the damage recently to a human being and to the vehicle. So I have flashbacks to that. Like those visions pop in my head every time I see a drink now. Like, so I don't know how that's going to respond when I see it in person, but I know pictures of alcohol are enough to do that. Yeah. All right. Where were you, Coach? Tyler, I don't know why you guys say stuff like that. The food over here, that's not food. Our food isn't more processed. That weird junk that people try to pass off as food is more processed. What are you talking about? Our meat's not more, our rice, our fruit is not any more processed. In fact, ours tends to be higher quality than over there, a lot of it. Yeah. I think what you mean is we have more junk food available in the US. Our food isn't more processed. These food like substances, we have more of them available. It's a totally different thing. Like our rice and beef is not more processed than yours. But I don't have stuff like that in my house. So I don't buy those things. I eat food. Right? Pepper says, we're with you, Coach. Appreciate it, Pepper, man. Non-alcoholic beers. Who the hell drinks a non-alcoholic beer? Those things. That's such a weird. Beer is an acquired taste. You know, it's like beer is an acquired taste. Nobody actually likes beer. You just drink it till you can tolerate it, and then you get addicted to the alcohol. Nobody likes the taste of beer. Oh man. Give me a second here, guys. I gotta make some posts. Be right back to you guys. We got to keep all the social media posts going while I'm in here. You got to multitask. It's how I get away with these long live streams for the unaware. By multitasking, I can justify just chilling and doing this. So I do posts, I read client stuff, type to clients, and I'll get right back to you. All right, got it. Coach a lot of people in the UK do now, former alcoholics in UK British people. I gave my family members that also avoid alcohol like the plague, right? People in UK actually like the taste of alcohol. It's very strange, right? Well, it's because they become addicted. Like it's people try to make these things tolerable. Mm-hmm. There's a messenger. I need to turn this off. Just a second. associate exactly. So it's because they associate the taste with it now. Because the first time you try beer, nobody likes beer, right? Nobody tries beer their first time and goes, "Oh, that tastes great." It is purely an association. Well, they get addicted through cultural indoctrination. I mean, Tomner, you're Eastern European, aren't you, bro? I mean, I come from a Slavic family. You know, like I was given beer as a kid. Here, have this. Like 4 years old. So cultural and social indoctrination is how you get addicted to booze. Family, peer pressure, culture. You know, pretty straightforward, really. Sorry, client. Sorry, talking to a client there. Hey, Connor, I agree alcohol should be illegal. The problem is the practicality of it. Connor says, yes, from my family, nobody drinks. Like I remember my dad used to take me to bars and tell me, you don't want to end up like that. And it stuck with me. Yeah, totally fair. Totally fair. I agree in principle, by the way, Connor. The issue is the practicality. It's like I make the statements and then people get angry at me. Like I'm like, if I was God Emperor of mankind, this is how we would resolve it, right? Those are ideals. That's an ideal. Because the reality, it is very hard to enforce that one for the obvious reasons, right? When people say stupid stuff like, "Oh, you couldn't ever get rid of these drugs," and we totally could. If the U.S. military was used specifically for the purpose to win the war on drugs, it would go away because they only have a single source. There's not 37 ways to make cocaine or crack. It comes from one plant and one plant only, right? The problem with alcohol, right? The problem with alcohol is that we can make it from 50 different food sources. There's essentially no way to stop its manufacturer at that level, right? So crack, cocaine, all those drugs come from a single plant. Heroin comes from a single plant. Let's go down the row of common stuff alcohol is made from: grapes, plums, rice, corn, wheat, potatoes. Okay. See the issue? These are all foods that we can grow in large quantities. All these other drugs come from single plants that are hard to grow in large amounts and require more refinement. So therein lay the problem. We can ferment almost anything to make alcohol. That's what makes it difficult to get rid of. Marcinio, you're asking me about champagne. I haven't alcohol is completely banned in my home. No, you will not be bringing, one of my friends will not bring a bottle of champagne into my house on New Year's Eve. I do not allow alcohol in my home. No exceptions. Right. People would just make their own, but perhaps a big. So that's the only way, Connor, is to draconian. You would have to have draconian laws to do it, which is why I said if I was God Emperor Trump, this is not Trump, God Emperor mankind. Man, I'm throwing the wrong memes in. This would be the solution, and it would work. But short of draconian laws, because of how easy it is to make from a wide variety of foods and the already existing addiction problems, nothing short of truly draconian laws would effectively stop it. Right. Oh Lord, too much meme culture slipped into that one. You know, Coach knows the meme. Oh my God, I gotta wipe my nose on. I got a towel here just for that. Of course, we having hand towels on the desk. Oh man, yeah. You know, what you gonna do though? I think someone in Saudi Arabia got 350 less for making wine. British foreigner, they know how it's done. Yeah, fair. So you know, but short of draconian laws, you're not going to stop it. Um, and people get angry when you suggest it too. Someone that I know offline got angry at one of my posts about it on Facebook. And I'm just like, you may want to check it onto my fitness page. I think she didn't understand how I feel, but she's also an alcoholic. Um, through my circle of friends. Well, you still have what prohibition work out? When I said if I could have my way, alcohol would disappear, she got all miffed about it. I advocate for said draconian laws. It may sound extreme, but a deterrent is meant to prevent the very act beginning to start with, right? Right. Right. The issue is the existing addiction is creating a big problem. So that's the problem we run into with it. That pre-existing addiction in social situation would make it difficult. Chocolate is getting crazy expensive. I have no idea why, Marcia. I have no clue. I don't have a frame of reference for the context of that statement. Good morning, Ryan. What's going on? What would you do if Sydney Sweet turned up with a 6-pack of Bud Light? Would you let her in? Here's the problem with that question. I don't want to go into my personal life, so I'm not going to answer that question. Let's see. In a way, I love that chocolate is getting expensive because I'm cheap, so I don't want to buy anymore. I don't have any context for this statement. So let me be clear. I don't know what you guys are talking about with the chocolate thing. Did something happen that raised the price? I have no idea. Like I don't have a frame of reference for this statement. Yeah. Yeah. I eat dark chocolate occasionally. I mean, there can be benefits to dark chocolate. Here in Europe, chocolate became very expensive. Gotcha. Is there a reason? Is there a reason? Did something happen? So that's where you guys have to fill me in and go, oh, something happened with whatever supply chain through. Like what happened? You know. keep in mind, I don't really eat chocolate, and two, I don't live in Europe. So it's like this is just out of left field for me, right? Yeah. Climate change is the reason. I don't really know what chocolate costs these days. And a bar is a relative term. Something happened with chocolate supply from Africa or something. Okay, makes sense. I would assume something happened that caused it. Not just randomly, it didn't just happen. Someone just decided to raise the price. I'm sure something occurred. I have a voracious appetite. Thankfully, sweets aren't a part of that. Food inflation is a manufactured ripoff in general. A global cocoa shortage caused by a combination of climate change induced severe weather, droughts, and floods, crop disease, and lower yields from aging cocoa plants. Just Googled this. All righty. All right. Once the supply chain increases again, they won't reduce the prices. We'll see what happens, I guess. The thing is, I don't think a reasonable person deny that climate change is occurring. The issue is when instead of saying, hey, we need different innovative technologies to deal with pollution and climate change, okay, great. Let's tax people. That's when you just look at something and it's any reasonable person just screams at something is a scam. The second taxation becomes the issue. So my take on climate change. So what are our solutions? So innovative technology. Innovative technology. Where does that come from? Usually capitalist systems create innovation. Because who are the biggest polluters? Countries like China. What are you going to do about that? So when people have these discussions about what fossil fuels, they discuss pollution, they discuss these different things with climate change. What are your solutions? Well, your solutions better involve technology, innovation, and infrastructure. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. But the second your solutions involve taxing people, it automatically sounds like a scam, and any reasonable person thinks it's a scam, and it is a scam. Anytime the solution is to tax people, we know we're dealing with a scam. Straight up. Yeah. But I'm not saying pollution and stuff isn't real and we shouldn't be concerned. But again, what's your solution? Well, the solution better be infrastructure, technology, innovation. You better be finding ways to put money into those things because there's your solutions. Not a carbon tax. But again, if we're going to talk about waste and we're going to talk about these things, if they'll even discuss the diet and, well, we need to do whatever. Some people argue with me. How about we just get rid of junk food then? Because if we're going to have those conversations about excessive overeating and junk food and garbage, well, I think junk food's a big issue here. But again, our other point is always us worried with these in first world countries instead of saying, okay, so how are you going to enforce this on these other countries that are bigger polluters? What are you going to do about China and India? How is slapping a tax on your citizens fix the pollution problems from China and India? But ultimately, any of these things come down to innovation, technology, innovation. I will argue one point, though, as someone who has worked in energy industry, this fear of nuclear power is a problem. I will say that much. The fear of nuclear power is a problem. Chernobyl was a long time ago, guys. Nuclear technology is dramatically safer. This is really where we need to be looking instead of more into nuclear power plants, things like that. You want cleaner energy, you have to quit being afraid of nuclear. Right. Valid point, SD. I agree. Taxation of working class people is theft. Right. Taxation is theft. I always hate that. I get that argument on my stuff. Well, how do you want to pay for roads? I'm like, corporate taxes, tariffs, things like that can handle all of it. And quit spending so much. But we come over back to the other point of you weren't taxing people, they would have more money, right? They would have more money to boost the economy anyways. They would have more spending power. Quit taxing working and middle class people at all. China and India are still industrializing. You know, Chernobyl is 99% human incompetence and not technology faults, absolutely. And again, even then, the technology is way better today. Right, taxation is 100% theft. Look at Dubai and UA zero tax, right? No, I agree. Taxation is absolutely theft. Our governments get absolutely run on business taxes, taxing businesses, taxing business profits. Could fund everything that our governments need. Jason, if we start using nuclear energy, what about the poor billionaires who invested in oil? Think of them for God. I know, man. You're right, SD. You're right. I didn't think about them. Isn't a balance between market and government the best solution? To some extent, Marcinio, but why do we need to be taking money out of the hands of the working class? Why are we breaking the working and middle class, taxing them? All right. Impacting their upward mobility. Right. To legitimize their democratic power. Is that what we need it? So what about the people in America who don't pay taxes then? What about the poor who don't pay any income tax? So have we legitimized their democratic power? You've been doing something new. Do they look bigger? No, I mean, I'm still fasted this morning, so they're smaller than the afternoon. No, dude, I'm just doing weighted chins. This is why democracy itself is a scam. We vote for who's going to steal the least amount of our money. Man, what a scary concept. Ooh. What a concept that is. We vote for who's going to steal the least amount of our money. Marcinia, but people who with minimum wage don't pay any income tax. So why do we need to legitimize their democratic process? Why can't being a citizen legitimize it? You know? You know? And I think anyone who has never worked for themselves does not understand, because everyone else sees taxes as a really easy thing. Look, they take the money out of your check, and your company handles it for you with payroll deductions, and then you get money back at the end of the year. It feels like a totally different system for you, but what happens when you're self-employed or run your own business? You're going to have a whole different view of it. Your stress about taxes, like I will tell you as a self-employed small business owner, the IRS is my number one life stressor. And I do mean that literally. My taxes and the IRS are the biggest stressor I have in life. That is the biggest thing that I have to worry about. So I'm definitely going to have a different view on it. Like, dude, like even right now, when I woke up this morning, you know that my biggest stressor that I had to think about was the IRS. First thing this morning, dude, when I woke up, laying in bed, that's the first thing I had to think about. That's my biggest stressor in life. For me personally, so I'm going to feel that way about it, right? They're my number one stressor. 60% of my life problems would be gone if they just disappeared right now, just off the face of the earth permanently. You know? Democracy is used as a tool to keep the population docile and submissive. I don't know about all that, always, Connor. No, I believe in democracy. Because you're always going to have a social structure and order and hierarchy. That's unavoidable in a society, man. All the way down even to the family level. But people who only worked for others in a corporate environment will never have the same. You will never understand the true stress of taxation unless you've worked in the payroll and tax end of the corporation also. But I can tell you as a private individual who does not have a big corporate entity that I work for that handles that, taxation is my number one stressor. It is my biggest nightmare financially. And it is a nightmare. That is the biggest deterrent to self-employment and running your own business. You know, right. And it's like I've said before that if the average American, if they didn't have the laws written right now with the IRS, the way that they do with corporate entities to where corporations do payroll deductions for you, and the average American had to handle their taxes the way self-employed people do and small business owners, there would be a revolution. They would overthrow the government straight up. That'd be the end of it. The US government would be gone. I'm just telling you. People wouldn't put up like 100% of the population had to do that with small business owners or self-employed people the way we have to do it. You would overthrow them immediately. They would simply march on DC and behead them all. It would be over. I'm telling you straight up, that is what would happen. And they're fully aware of that. That's why they do it the way they do with payroll taxes. There would be a revolution. And it's up to you to take all your weekly and monthly profits and figure this out and then cut it to a check to the IRS at the end of the year. And if you don't, then there's problems. And then having to deal with them yourself directly. Like you getting to the end of the year and going, okay, let's see, I have to give the IRS $27,000 in a direct deposit this May. This is what you just calculate up. Right out of your pocket. And you've had to figure an account for it and keep up with it all through the year. Right? It's a different ballgame, isn't it? So people don't have to do that. You guys, everyone else, it's just, oh, my company handles it for me. They take it out and sort it. And, oh, I get some money back at the end of the year. That's done to keep people complacent. Because then people start seeing tax season as, hey, I get some money back, instead of, man, I better figure out and calculate this up and pay them, or they're going to arrest me, or they're going to take my stuff from me by force. When you see it as a tyrant and a thief, because you have to deal with it that way, putting their hand into your pocket under threat of force, versus, hey, you get a little bit of money back every year and you don't miss it because you don't see it, right? You're going to have a different viewpoint real quick. If I ran a business, oh, but then you got to hire someone to do all your stuff, right? But we're back over to still, Connor, there's a stress of, with your own business, you have to keep up with this. You got to keep up with this month to month. What do you mean just hire someone to live at your house and to do the math? Like, what are you talking about? Or are you talking about just an accountant at the end of the year? I mean, most people hire accountants for that. But you still have a lot to keep up with. You still got stressors to deal with. Right? And therein lay the problem. So again, it's going to have to do with your life experience. But I can tell you the viewpoints are generally different. Small business owners and self-employed people do not view the IRS and taxes the same way as people who only work for corporations their whole life. Because we have a different experience. You have to file the return annually. but every year. But when people have normal jobs, they just put in their numbers and their corporation does the math and they do a deduction every month. They just take it out of your check and they just send it to the government every month out of every paycheck. And then if you did the deductions and stuff right, you usually get a little bit back. So when they file it every year, hey, they overpaid and they give you money back. And you don't do any math. You do nothing. You only have to do a tax file or an accountant or whatever at the end of the year. And you might be doing a bunch of deductions. You might do the standard. You know. So instead, Marcinio, it breeds contempt within the citizens. Because I have contempt over it. So instead, there's contempt of the average citizens, to the small business owner, to the person like me. Because you know how I perceive the government and the IRS? As violent thieves who steal my money by force under threat. I don't see a difference. To me, this is simply someone who takes my money by force under threat. With consequences if I don't hand it over. Basically, I'm strong-armed out of my hard-earned money. This is a thief who comes and steals from me under threat of force enormous sums of money. And what do I get in return? I'm not saying they don't give us anything in return, but I look at it and go, what exactly am I getting for my money? Like, what am I getting back that justifies what they're taking from me? I'm not seeing the return on my investment. You know? So Marcinus, you're telling me because those corporations employ millions of Americans that I should be strong-armed out of my money and get nothing back for it? That's what I'm seeing as your explanation. Right. Okay, but I want to be one of the people who doesn't pay taxes. 30% of American adults don't pay any income tax, and they still get to vote. I want to be one of those. So that doesn't make sense because not everybody pays taxes. The guy working minimum wage doesn't pay any income tax, but he gets to vote. Right? He gets to vote. But if not enough pay, okay, fine. Well, how about I want to be one of the ones who doesn't pay? They don't have to pay. Why should I have to pay? See where I'm going with this? I want to be one of, they need to maybe raise it to a higher rate like Trump talked about. He floated that during his first month of presidency again, of taking taxes away for anyone making 150,000 adjusted income or less, no taxes. I like that. So if you get married, it's 300,000. I like that. That sounds really good. Let's do that. But they don't, Marcinia. So let's raise that number a little bit higher. And why do they penalize us for being self-employed? Why do I have to pay a higher tax rate than you do? Marcinio, so explain that one to me also. Why do I have to pay a higher tax rate than you do working for a corporation? So why does your $100,000 get taxed less than mine? So because you choose to work for a corporation and I choose to be self-employed, I have to pay a higher tax rate than you? And this is cool. So essentially, we don't reward entrepreneurship in America. We punish people for being small business owners and self-employed. You punish people for not working for Dow Chemical or Chevron or Amazon or whoever. We have to pay higher taxes. Right? Like we get taxed into the ground. Right? So why don't we, that's what I'm saying. Let's just stop taxing citizens and let's tax businesses, corporate money, and then quit squandering the money. They have enough money. They can make enough money. They're squander it. How about you stop sending foreign aid out with our money? I'm saying this as someone who really is paying my taxes is a problem. This is what I see my money going to: foreign aid, giving food stamps to someone with an anchor baby. Welfare for drug addicts instead of getting rid of the flow of drugs into our country. I mean, we pay taxes. Why should we have a single drug come across our border? We pay all this money for the military. Why can't they use it to wipe the cartels out and end the entire flow of drugs? That would fix 50% of our welfare problem. It would fix 50% of our prison problem. It would create more workers. If you're going to tax us into the ground, why aren't they using it for that? Exactly, SD. I hate having these conversations because it fills me with ungodly rage. We're being robbed, and we sat here coming up with copes as to why it's okay. Yeah, man, it's not okay. That's why I tell people, dude, if you were a self-employed or small business owner, you wouldn't feel this way. You would have contempt. Right? It's easy for you to make these ideological arguments when you're not a small business owner or self-employed. It's real easy to make those arguments because you don't have the same experience. You don't deal with taxes. Yeah. No. So why do we have to pay a self-employed penalty? So why do I have to pay an extra $15,000 to the IRS for every 100 grand I make than you do? Why do they get an extra one? $15,300 for 100,000. Why do they get for every 100 grand an extra $15,300 in taxes out of it? Why do they get a 15.3% penalty for being self-employed? You know, right? Just saying, as someone who deals with this, I feel it's a little unreasonable. You know. All right, I need to get some more coffee. Be right back. All right. I completely disagree with that one, Marcidio. No, dude, it didn't happen at all. I'm just saying, I really like Trump's idea of that he proposed last January of simply removing all income tax for anyone making under 150,000. I think that's great. Let's do that and let's cut spending. Right? That would boost the economy. That would increase spending power of people. That would allow corporations to make more money. They could then be taxed. It would improve the spending power of the entire middle class and working class. That would be a stimulus. That would be a massive economic stimulus. Then the same thing, actually use the military to get rid of the flow of drugs. SD. I have this sneaking suspicion the government doesn't have the average person's best interest at heart. How dare you? How dare you suggest such a thing, SD? They deeply care about you, right? They deeply care about us and love us as much as a mother loves her newborn baby, right? Big Daddy government loves you on a very deep and personal level. Oh. Sorry, guys, I was submit myself for reprogramming. Right? But more at heart than the millionaire class, I think. Man. That's right. When you get out of the camp, you're going to be like, oh, man. Right? You'd be like, govern me harder, Daddy. Tax me harder, Daddy. Please. I like it. I feel like I want a safety word at this point, though. I need a safety word for this act. Right? Man. If only we could get a safe word for the government, like we yell at pineapples, they start effing us for a week, right? Or at least give us some lube or something, man. You know, hey, could you spit on it or something? I mean, yeah. Just saying. Man. Oh, it's a perspective. Most of my family's in the U.S. My cousin was in Florida, was down, and he is taxes in the low 20%. But how scary is that? To wish, I mean, to even be in a situation, I wish mine were that low, and that's really not that low. You know? I mean, we need a context as Americans, though, in this situation. So for the Europeans, you don't understand our history here in the U.S. The American Revolution was fought over how big of a tax. Like, you understand, the colonies here rebelled and fought a violent revolution against the crown to form the United States. Anyone know how big that tax was that initiated the revolution? 3%. The U.S. colonies rebelled and formed the United States after the revolution over a 3% tax. That's right. We dumped your tea in the harbor for over a 3% tax, guys. But back over addicted to strength. I'm surprised Nippard made gains on 6 sets a week. I'm not. If he trained hard, I'm not remotely surprised. Because Just because you've previously done the really high volumes doesn't mean that effective training doesn't work all of a sudden. Maybe he finally started recovering better. Oh, man. Dan, P.S. just wanted to say, big fan. Been watching probably over 10 years. Back when you and Ward were the main guy. Man, that's been a while. You've definitely been in it a while, Dan. OG followers right here, man. Awesome. Definitely an OG. It's going to be a GPP type of morning. Where's the temperature at? Oh, it's at 61. It's 61. Hold on. This person saying it was real. Everybody always so scared of squats. Yeah, Nippard was overtraining, hence his injuries prior. Just reminded me about the Jerry Ward drama, man. I mean, Jerry's been dead for a few years now, guys. Oh, man. And we had all that drama. And it was so silly, man. We fought over the stupidest stuff. You know? Yeah, rest in peace, Jerry. I would say the same thing, man. Rest in peace to Jerry. Whatever flaws the man had as a young man, watching the videos between him and Jason was peak entertainment. Man. So, do you guys, hell, why we've got the true fans in here, do you guys want to know what really caused the drama? Do you guys want to know what really kicked off Jerry and I really fighting? Because we did a fake fight. Like, I'm going to be honest. Jerry and I coordinated a fake fight originally. We WWE'd it up early on as a fake fight, and then we became friends. We were friends behind the scenes, right? He's like, dude, let's just WWE. Let's create a little bit of fake back and forth banter and a little trash talk, just for the views, right? So we did a fake fight originally. Like, he's like, dude, listen. I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea, man. Let's do that, right? So we had just it was for entertainment. Okay. That's how it started. But we were friends behind the scenes. Like, we talked, we chatted. He got pissed over the fake Merc thing when that happened. He blew up my phone mad. Like, he was mad as hell. Like, dude, I had a string of FU text messages on my phone, not even Messenger, like, because we had our phone, we had each other's phone numbers and stuff at the time. Dude, mad as hell, like cussing me out over it, right? F you, F the, and I told him to go F himself or whatever, and I blocked him, right? Like, whatever, dude, you can eat a bag of dicks. I might have told him that he could go F himself with an 18-inch rubber dick, break it off and beat himself with what's left of it, and then I hit the block button. Typical Jason, right? That's what you would expect from me. And then he went on to say, when he made the video with my ex, he basically told guys, oh, Jason's a big pussy. If y'all see him and his girl at the gym, you should walk up and just slap her ass in front of him because he's not going to do anything. Now, context, given how hot-headed my ex was. This created a fight because she flipped. And basically, she was like, I will shoot anybody. One of these people runs up and assaults me like that, I'm going to draw. You're not going to do anything. I'm going to shoot them before you do. But you better shoot them too, like, so this created a fight, right? So then because of that, now I'm in a situation to where my girlfriend is pissed about it. She's angry, accusing him of telling men to assault her, you know, and mind you, I'm getting, yeah, that was Brittany, you know, that was Brittany. So, you know, this created the fight. And I went in hard. And it worked out great for me because every time I made a video going off on him, my girl was all excited. And it's like, you know, bro, every time I made one of those videos, man, I got my brain screwed up. You know, so it's just, yeah. Like she got really happy every time I trash talked him. Every time I called Jerry out from that point forward, like, you know, right. You know. So yeah. So this is essentially what created the whole fiasco. You know, it was just that's what happened. That was how the fight started in the junkie ward and the Cocoa Puff, you know, because now he had the problem. Now he didn't piss my girl off. He came at my girl, you know. I don't know. I don't follow any of them. I don't follow any channels now. Well, he felt that I started it over the fake Merc thing. Like he was legitimately offended. Like he was really legitimately upset by it. Clearly. So, I mean, let's be clear. Yes, he started the fight with me. I didn't start the beef. However, did he feel he was justified? Like he was legitimately offended by it. You know, he seemed to be, I mean, if the fact that he wrote the F you to me a dozen times in response, like typed it out on his text, you know, he was legitimately pissed off, you know. So, like, he blew a gasket over it. Like, he straight up roid raged over it. Yeah. Yeah. You know, so, yeah. Jerry had a lot of substance abuse issues, not just anabolic, and I'm sure that played a factor in some of it. Yeah, of course, I'm sure it did. You know, but so that's what happened, guys. If you guys want the full story, now granted, that's my side of the story. He's dead, so he can't tell his side. He might have had a completely different perception of the whole thing, and I can accept that. You know, I can only tell you the side of the story as I remember it and perceived it. He might have had a completely different side to this story, and because he's dead, he can't tell that side, so we don't know what it is. You know, BMW, I appreciate the super chat, man. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the super chat. You got angry at Arnold. Yeah, at least you never pop your teddies benching, right? Right? We did not pop them teddies. Old Teddy 2 times. Morning, Jason. I'm Will Mullo. How you doing? I'm well. We're doing good here. That's true. We've not popped the teddies. You popped both of them, though, man. Like, how do you pop both teddies? Well, the 315. I don't know. At least I can still rep 315 without popping both my teddies at the same time. I predict that if I pop a teddy, it's only going to be one, though. You know, so I'm not popping both of them at the same time. That's just embarrassing. Jerry, what were you doing, man? Remember, man, old Teddy. That was what my other nickname for him was, Teddy 2 times. Popping both teddies on the same rep. What a world. Again, people wonder why I'm against all this machine and goofball fluff and pump. I mean, that's a textbook example. Jerry built up on machines and he went and grabbed 315, hadn't benched in a long time. Goes to bench 315 and tears both his pecs on the eccentric. Just tears them off the bone. Like, are we serious? Gee, Jason, why are you against this sort of training? Well, I mean, these examples. Oh, I've been lazy lately. Don't want to lift. And Will, do you need a pep talk? It's your lazy butt. Will, get up and get to the gym. Get up. Come on. Up 2. Off your ass and on your feet, out of the shade and in the heat. All right, come on. Get up. Not putting up with this. Won't tolerate laziness in a man. Get to the gym. I got a gym in my bedroom. Well, you better start pumping out some squats. I don't want to hear any excuses. I need to get up off your bed and get under the damn barbell. Now, coach's orders. I don't hear any back talk. Get up and do it. Come on. Up 2. All right, next. Giving motivation. This is what I do. No excuses. People get a case of lazyitis. I got the cure. Today I don't want to, but I still squat. Hustle, Will, come on. Today I don't want to go, but still do squats to failure because I gotta be done. Like for me, man, I'm gonna get out here in a bit. We're gonna do some GPP. I'm gonna bust out my sled. I'm gonna bust out my carry handles. Oh, I will lift today's biceps, shoulders, abs. You better get into do some squats. I think you misspelled squats in there, Will. When I'm reading that, you spelled squats incorrectly. I'm gonna need you to correct that. Clearly a typo. Autocorrect on your phone got you there. That must have been what it was. That's inspired me to do tire flips later. And I kind of wish that I had a big tractor tire. I'm not gonna lie. Oh man. Anybody want to buy me a tractor tire? Send it to me as a gift. Oh Lord. Tire flips in the rain. There we go. Is that the end of this training week for you? Good old client Paul. Let's check out these. Give me a second here, guys. I got to check his squat footage. How we doing? All right. Okay. Back is rounding a little. Safety bar squats. All right. Is a 500 squat reasonable at a very lean body fat? I think very much. Average height. Totally. Perfectly reasonable. 200. Do the tire flip. Tire 500 for delivery. Yeah, 200 for the tire, 500. That sounds about right, Connor. The tires themselves are not the problem. It's getting somebody to deliver it. Yeah, rain in the tire. Yeah. Always get people like, why don't you go do your backyard? Man, I got to cart all that stuff into my backyard. That's the problem. Right? I don't want to go hang out in my backyard. At least it's mowed. It's mowed good right now. I gotta pay my lawn guy again. I hate lawn work, by the way. I hate lawn work. I don't do it. You ever use your punch it back? I remember football practice, they used to make us do ups uphill, right? My gym has one tire, it's huge and old and full of rainwater, right? Old rainwater tires. I wonder how this is going to work this afternoon with having two separate lives now, because it cut me off. We had to do a second one. I'm a little worried it's going to mess up my algorithm a little bit this afternoon. But at least we got better views on that first one. We'll see how the second one does. In spite of it getting cut off at an hour, it had a decent number of views. All things considered. You know. Huge, old, and full of rainwater. Right. I feel like I want to do more GPP on my GPP days. I really feel like I need to do more volume. Right? What do you guys think? Streamline my lifting volume, but the conditioning does need to go up a little bit. I feel like I would lean out better. Let's ramp it up. You see the Aurora Borealis in Texas? No, I did not. I didn't see any out here. I don't think we have it this far. Keep in mind, you guys always, I have to remind non-Texans, you don't understand how big Texas is. Right? And how it's, again, for other people, they don't quite conceptualize. Just because something's happening in Texas doesn't mean it's anywhere near me or visible or need a context. I'm pretty sure we didn't see it down here. There's a whole video on that for Europeans showing the size of the U.S. states relative to European countries, and they're just shocked. And it's why we point out for Europeans, think of the individual states as individual countries, because they have their own laws, their own borders, right? Their own cultures, and many of the states are bigger than most of the countries in Europe. So out of the 50 states, I mean, Texas is bigger than any country in Europe, right? France, the UK, those are all pretty small compared to us, right? We're significantly bigger. So that's always a good way for people to think of it. So think of instead of the United States, think of them as, for your purposes, they're basically different countries. They have their own borders, they're big, but Russia's bigger, sure. But we start talking Portugal, France, Poland, right? The UK, they're not. So I have a huge European audience, especially in the mornings in these coffee chats. So the way to think of it is, think of the individual states as countries. So when you guys are like, oh, what's it like over in the States? I'm like, that's like saying, what's it like in Europe? Right? And that's why a lot of Americans don't always travel as much as you would think, because traveling from one state to another is like traveling from one country to another. Right? So keep in mind, not only are they vast stretches of land, the laws are not even the same. So if you cross state borders, the laws that you're subject to are completely different. Something that's illegal in one state might not be legal in another. They have their own prisons. They have their own, So the laws that you live under, right? The UK is the size of New York. That's probably about right. The laws that you live under are different for each state. They have their own laws, their own funding, their own culture sometimes. Do you think, this is always a discussion with Texas. Man, that is always an ongoing conversation. We have this conversation regularly here of deciding and sitting down and discussing. Because this is the argument people make. But as far as Texas is concerned, we believe that our contract is valid. So people forget that. They'll argue, well, states can't do that. That's not how Texas sees it. Texas sees it as your government signed a contract with Texas. You signed a legal contract and agreement. It's a whole treaty agreement and everything. Like, your country signed it. Your president, Congress, everything, this is all signed. That tells us that Texas can leave at any time that it wants with a popular vote. And at an international level, the U.S. would be bound to that contract. If we started talking international law, push come to shove, they signed a legal contract with Texas. Notice that they didn't have any battles on Texas soil during the Civil War. They'd have been in breach of their contract. So that's the conversation that Texas does have. And I'm not part of the secessionist movement. I actually don't support, let me be clear. I believe that Texas has a legal right to do so. I personally vote against it. Makes sense? But I recognize that we have every right to do so legally per legal agreement that the U.S. government made with Texas. That we are allowed to leave with a majority vote at any time, forever. They signed a legal contract agreeing to this. Now, I personally oppose the secession. But I do believe, like most Texans do, that we have a right to do it if we so choose. Right? The Alamo was way before that. That was generations apart. So Texas, the Alamo is when Texas became its own country. Now, here's what the argument that Texas would have where it would get ugliest. The agreement wasn't with the current land of Texas, it's with all of it. So technically, if Texas chooses to leave, the U.S. would be bound by legal contract to give it back its entire territory. Okay? Not the current smaller version. So people forget that too. No, the legal agreement was that under a popular vote, Texas could leave at any time and regain its original territories. That means all the way up into Colorado. Chunks of New Mexico, Colorado, Oklahoma, that's all Texas, per the legal agreement. We get all that back if we leave. Hey, Jason, do you think cereal is pretty much junk food? Pretty much. I see some bodybuilders eat it post-workout during their season. We were having a conversation about state sizes and Texas having a legal right to secede per a legal contract and so on. And I personally don't believe in it. I'm actually opposed to Texas secession, but I was pointing out the U.S. government did sign a legal contract with the Republic of Texas when we became a state. And it's supposed to last forever. So even up to including today, the president, everyone signed it. There's a legal agreement that the state of Texas can become a country again and get all of its old territories back with a popular vote at any time, and it's a legally binding contract that would be recognized in international courts. So we would get back New Mexico, Colorado, all that stuff. Now, I personally oppose it, but there's an enormous Texas secessionist movement. It's massive. We're talking millions and millions of people. There are millions of people who support Texas leaving. Cereal's 100%. I don't know. I don't know that I would count it as one of the worst, but I will concede your first point. Is it junk food? Yeah, absolutely. Full agreement, Lacey. No disagreement. I think we can definitely come up with stuff worse. But do I personally define it as junk food? Yeah. Probably very few exceptions. Maybe grape nuts aren't junk food. But the second they start throwing refined sugars and junk in it, you know what I mean? So I think there's where I would definitely say that where would I cross the line of where we would call cereal junk food? I think I can put a hard definition on that. Any cereal that has refined sugar added to it. Right? Which is what, 98% of cereals, 99%, 99.5, who knows? I don't know the exact percentage. The overwhelming vast majority of cereals have added sugars added. Added sugar is a junk food. So if you add a junk food to anything, it becomes a junk food. I think this is pretty straightforward. I don't think this is difficult to define. I think the U.S. will break up. It probably will. Texas would probably be the one state that could do it. Massive population, cultural identity, armed population, oil, and allegedly some nukes. Not just allegedly. Texas leaving pretty much cripples the U.S. But this is another reason not to leave. Connor's a lot of benefits to moving to Texas. So they would essentially cripple the U.S. military. That's a problem. What do you mean some nukes? Hence why this is a problem, why other Americans should be worried if Texas says, yeah, we're leaving. You don't have nukes anymore. Where do you think they're manufactured? Unless they changed it again in the last 10 years ago, the entire arsenal is manufactured here. All of it. All the warheads are finished in Texas. All of them. This is where the final assembly is done. The entire arsenal is made here. Now it's redistributed. They don't have any new ones. We own the plant. All right. Would the Bulgarian method of training benefit by adding volume to their training? Man, I'm going to say that we don't even have the discussion of Bulgarian training. I'm going to recommend you not do the Bulgarian method as someone who's done it and documented it. My arms are only 18 is massive. If you count oatmeal or wheat berries as cereal, then that, I think we're good there. Would an independent Texas join NATO, though? Probably not. Would you draw the line at Frosted Flakes? Yeah. Do you apply as an isolated kernels? Where's those squats at, Will? I did not see squats written there. We didn't see any squats written. On leg day. Every day is leg day for me now. So I just do full body. I don't even split stuff. I have lifting days and then GPP days. And legs get done on all of them because I squat on the lifting days and I push a sled on conditioning days. Doing full body but switch it up. Okay, fair enough. I don't know what Texas would do with that. It's hard to say, man. The problem is the U.S. wouldn't just let us leave. It would get ugly. Like it would be so ugly. What Texas City has the best lifting culture? I don't know. Probably all of them. Like it's not like you can go to any city in Texas and not find a bunch of powerlifting and strength gyms. They're everywhere. You know, not hard to find serious gyms. It's in general here. Leaving would be ugly because the U.S. can't let it happen. They can't. But then you have the problem of then what do they do about it? You know, if it did happen, like it would be such a mess. But that was the other problem that people forgot. No, Will, you can do that on other social media. I'm not doing a Discord at all. No, Will. Nope. Nope. Not at all. Not even going to consider it at this point. And I'm not going to explain why. Other than no chance at all. Zero. So great gyms, guns, they hire physiologists, S&C coaches. That'd be interesting in a few years. I don't know on that one for the S&C coaches per se. Not going to be high-paying jobs for that here, unfortunately, that I can think of, unless you're for professional sports teams. Possibly physiologists. I don't know, man. You'll have to investigate. But what was I going to say on that other thing? Oh yeah, there would be so many problems because they couldn't let us go, and then Texas would fight back. And again, people don't understand our mindset. They don't understand the Texas mindset. They really don't. It would be really ugly. We need to be clear. That is one thing. There's almost no country on earth that could hold Texas. So look at the logistics of it. So ask anyone who's, say, a military officer to look at the logistics from any of your home countries. I think China would struggle to hold the state of Texas. That might be the only country who could invade a separate Texas and actually hold it. Would be the only country on earth with any chance, would be maybe China. And even then, the resource investment would be absurd. So Texas would be harder to hold than Iraq or Afghanistan in terms of an actual military operation to invade it and secure it and hold it. If the U.S. stepped completely out of the way, it would be almost impossible. So hence why the U.S. itself is impossible. I mean, Texas would not really be takeable, just in terms of logistics. All right. And we saw that. So, I mean, perfect example. Think of the worst stuff with Afghanistan, and then Texas is going to be another tier higher. So essentially, you would have a population that not only has its own military. Are you familiar with the American? No, I don't know what that is at all. I've never heard of that. You would essentially have an extremely heavily armed population that can shoot, that's hostile and patriotic. From a military perspective, that is a nightmare. That is an absolute nightmare. because it's a population that would actually fight to the death. And keep in mind, you're not dealing with, say, a conventional military. You would be dealing with an insanely armed hostile insurgency that has hundreds of millions of firearms. Texas has over 100 million firearms in the state, probably, estimate. Billions of rounds of ammunition. And it's not like some countries, oh, their firearms are some bolt guns. No, like we have millions of modern sporting rifles. Millions of them. Let me state that again. We have millions of AR-15s in Texas. Not a few thousand, not 50,000, millions. So again, you're dealing with a heavily armed, hostile population that is going to harass you nonstop. An aggressive, pissed off, heavily armed insurgency that is going to use guerrilla warfare continually every day. That's a problem. A hypothetical between Texas. There's a lot of land between. I mean, that's like talking about a hypothetical between the United Kingdom and, so let's take something on the mainland. Think how far apart they are, Connor. There's a lot of stuff in between. Hey, Will, a lot of people moved there, but the same people are still there. Right? Just because you added people doesn't mean the rest of Texas isn't still there. And let's come back to that other number. You don't need the majority. You only need 10% of the population to fight back. That's unholdable. Right? There's no military on force on earth that could maintain that and hold that. That's too much resistance. So if 10% of the population of the state resisted, that's an impossible, completely impossible scenario for China. So do the math on it, right? So therein lay the problem with Texas seceding and it being a big fight. Like, what would they do? They're not going to be able to hold it if we chose to leave. But like I said, I don't support that. Let me be clear. We're talking hypotheticals. You know, because I actually don't support Texas secession personally. But Connor, here's your problem with Texas and California. They're too far apart. This would be like, so let me pull up a European map to give you a problem with the scenario. Well, who else is involved? Because they're too far apart. So this would be like maybe France and Ukraine having a war. Who wins? Be like, well, there's a lot of other countries in between for pretty long distance that might have something to say about it. It's not like they're next to each other, you know. Right? There's a lot of distance and other territories between there and a mountain range separating them, you know. California and Texas wouldn't even be able to fight each other. Let's just say we all became separate countries and California and Texas went to war. It would have to be a nuclear war. They would have to launch nukes. They can't really invade each other. There would be multiple other countries in the way. And you got two choices. You can either go through one of the largest mountain ranges on Earth, or you can go through a desert. Which one are you going through? But see, Connor, from a military perspective, those are problems. Like you're like, oh, those deserts and mountains, they could duke it out in. No, those are a problem. Those actually create the problem. It's not just some open grasslands between the two to get to the others. Those become nightmares to transport a fight across. So in fact, that's been noted that if an entire military, like let's say multiple countries ganged up and tried to invade the US, they're shut down there. They're not getting further than that. So let me give you a hypothetical with that. And the problem with it being California versus Texas, they're unreachable. So let's put it this way. Let's say all of Asia and Russia ganged up and decided we're going to fight the US, right? And let's say nukes are off the table. Let's take nukes out. We all decide we're not going to exterminate the world. Right? So we all agree in this current world war that we're about to describe that no one's going to use nukes. I think the US would consider global annihilation in its own defense. To be fair, the US literally might just decide that's the extermination of humanity at that point. If the US can't continue to exist, maybe the human race is gone. As crazy as it sounds, it could happen. So, I mean, God, Texas might almost do that. So let's take everything over there. So let's say all these major powers, Russia, China, India, Japan, North and South Korea, all form an alliance. That's some pretty sizable military power, right? They only got to get across the Pacific to get to us. And nukes are off the table. How far does their invasion get? And I'm talking the entire combined might. China, Russia, all those other Asian countries, India. Now, between Russia, China, and India, that's a pretty sizable military force. But it's all conventional. Let's say they get across the Pacific without being wiped out and they hit the mainland and establish a beachhead. How far do they get? They don't make it past the Rocky Mountains in any scenario. The invasion stops off that west coast. They do not have the military might and power to get any further than that. Assuming they get across the Pacific. Yeah, the US is impossible. It's impossible to successfully invade. So from a conventional military perspective, all of those countries combined together coming across the Pacific, if they can get across the ocean without us blowing them completely out of the water, if they get that far, they get shut down at the Rocky Mountains. They don't get further. And the same thing with the desert just south of it. That's as far as they get in a best case scenario. And then it gets shut down from that point. So the whole middle America and everything there in Texas doesn't get reached. That pretty much would become the line. Unless they get pushed back into the ocean. But they don't get further than that. So California itself could never get to Texas to fight. It's not in a conventional war. Again, that's almost an impassable barrier for a military, especially with other fighting already on the ground and insurgencies and stuff. Like those mountains are a pretty hard stop. So they've got to come down south through the desert and make it to Texas, which again is its own problem. So, all right, guys, not many people in here. I might wind this down. Get ready to go do my GPP. So I love you guys. Let me give you guys a bicep shot before we go. Oh, Mount Bicephalus. We're out of here.